Today we will talk about functions. Functions are a very productive method for making the code simpler. This is a function, it's called void main. Once you create a new project, you will find it there. The main means that this is the main function of our program, and the code written inside it will be executed first. Void means that this function doesn't return anything. If you see these two brackets empty, this means that this function doesn't take inputs. This is the first type of functions, the one that doesn't return anything and doesn't take inputs. So what is the second type, you ask? Well, second type is the one that returns things but doesn't take input. First we will start by the variable that this function will return, variable type. Let's say that it will return integer value. Let's name it sum. And as you can see, two brackets and two curly brackets. This is our new function. If we hit compile, you will see that, let's see this error, C identifier defined. Okay, he is stating that C is redefined. Let's change it to C1. As you can see now, everything is working correctly. Now in sum, this function doesn't take input between these two brackets, but it will return an integer value. If you change this to float, it will return a float value. If you change it to string, it will return a string value, string, and etc. Let's get it back to integer. Now let's say that I want to define two variables, int a1 equals 1, int, let's define them up there. You see, let's sum the variables. This sum a plus b. In c1 equals a plus b. Okay, now let's compile the code so that everything is fine. C1 equals a plus b. This will sum the two variables of a and b and store the result in C1. We want to return C1 value. We must write return C1, then hit compile. This method is the second type. It won't take anything but will return integer value by using return, then the variable that its type is integer. You can't use string variable here or a float variable. You must use the very same type of variable stated before the function name. This can be changed to anything. You can name it educational. As you can see, you can name it with your name. Let's say Ahmad. Anything can be used. How can we call this function in the main function? You just need to call it by its name, Ahmad. As you can see here, we call it, but we don't have the bar to store what it will return to us. So let's define a new variable, int result equals 0. Now if we state here result equal Ahmad, the result of the summing 0 plus 1 equals 1. It will return 1. Once we call it here, this variable will equal 1. So this is the second type of functions. Now let's look at the third type. It's really similar to the second type except for the fact that it will take inputs, int a1, int a2. Okay, let's write a1 and a2 here and define them up there in the variable section. a2, let's say that this will equal 0 and this will equal 2 for the sake of this example. Now this sum, let's name it sum, will take two integers, the a1 and a2, and will sum them and return the result in C1. Then it will return C1 as we stated here. The difference between this one and this one is that this method will take 2 inputs and return a value. This will take no inputs, but it will return a value.